All right, Anat, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I always like to just start off with a little introduction, and if you would share a little bit about what it is you do and some things that have led you to doing this work that you do with inner child healing and working with coaches.
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for 18 years, and I'd say what led me into it was my love of being the person that my friends always came to for advice. Like, I think I was always that natural, safe space for people and created peace of mind for them. God knows what I said back then, but whatever it was, it worked. And then my own healing, just starting out my own healing journey and things that I was challenged with from like constant anxiety and not being able to feel safe being by myself, like always needing to be around people, being super codependent to, struggling with my relationship with my mom. So it was really like me being my first client. And I took about 8 years. It was about 8 years of that, close to 10 years, I'd say, of the past 18 years that it took me to get to a place where I felt solid with myself. So as much as like in all those years, I always knew that I wanted to coach. I didn't start until I felt like I was stable enough, that I had the right tools, and that my life actually felt and looked different.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, and perfectly, right, it took that long because I didn't have the right tools. I was for many years just doing a lot of cognitive mindset work, which is part of the equation. I don't want to knock it. It's definitely part of the equation, but it didn't give me the full transformation. Didn't get to the root of things. I felt like I was just trimming weeds. I was constantly managing my awareness around stuff, but not actually changing my energy, my emotions, and my experience of life.
Mhm.
Um,
That was beautifully said. And thank
thank
you
you.
also for touching on how long that process actually took, because I think a lot of people, especially when you're suffering and you're in pain and you're just wanting things to get better, we have this expectation that it's going to just happen overnight. And this work can take such a long time, and it's a continuation, of course. And I agree with the name of this podcast is Healthy Mind, Happy Life. And you can't really have either if you're like all cluttered inside. And I agree, like the mindset part of things is a part of the equation, like you mentioned. And for me too, it helped me kind of like float through those times. It helped me like kind of
Yeah.
keep my head above water, if you will.
Yeah.
And I still do utilize those things, those mindsets in moments of distress or when I really need them. And what you're saying is this next level part of healing, where it's like really deeply rooted. You get past that part, and then you start really learning about all those inner workings, and it's painful and empowering.
Yes.
It's a roller coaster. And so I just appreciate you mentioning how long that process actually took. And I know for
Yeah.
some people listening, that could sound daunting, but you also don't want to do that work. You don't want to force yourself to do that work at a fast rate, because that can be very detrimental as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a combination of that. If you have a lot of trauma, there's only so fast that your nervous system can digest all of it, can process all of it. So really being like kind and gentle with yourself. And then other people, it doesn't have to take that long at all. You just have to have the right tools and mentorship and guidance. For
Mhm.
me, I was on that discovery. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. And social media isn't, wasn't back then what it is today. So it wasn't like, oh, you could just go on Instagram. Like Instagram didn't exist yet. So it wasn't like I really knew, and self-development wasn't where it is today. It's exploded, this industry, which is beautiful. But so for me, it took that long. And once I got there, I mean, got there. It's still always a work in progress, right? But once I felt that I had the right tools to experience real transformation, and you said it, transformation is not a walk in a park on a beautiful sunny San Diego day. It's a walk through a burning forest and there's dragons to slay. So if you're experiencing like discomfort, resistance, like pain, crying, being a mess, all kinds of emotions, like congratulations. You're on the right path. And so when I finally experienced that and got like, oh, this is the muck, this is the root, this is the energy that's been living deep in me that I get to now transform. And I was able to experience what it's like on the other side. I was like, okay, now I have the right tools. Now I feel ready. And it still took me another 8 months of wanting to just integrate myself to be like, now I'm ready to start serving others in that way. And so that was about 8.5 years ago, maybe a little less, that I started Training Camp for the Soul, my business. And I never thought that I'd be where I'm at today, which is now mentoring other coaches and healing professionals in my proven method and helping them go make that same impact. Like that was not my vision. That was not my plan. I just wanted to help others heal and work with people one on one. And it just took off from there because I had clients say to me, like, I've done so many things, and this is so powerful. Like, how can I learn to do what you do? And I heard that for about 3 years before I was like, really? Me? Like, who am I? And can I do this? And what is my method? And having to actually define it because it just came naturally to me after years and years of being in self-development work that I didn't really realize that I was taking people through a set process.
Mhm.
It's so yeah, so it's like 4 years ago I started to really intentionally, as I worked with clients, as I led my retreats, pay attention to what is the process here? What is it like step by step here that so that I can teach others to do this? Because there's a difference between having tools, which anyone that's a coach that works in self-development, we have, different tools that we've learned, whether they're tools like breath work or regulating your nervous system or, certain questions to ask or shadow work. So there's a lot of tools. And there's a difference between that and bringing it to a foundational method and taking that method through a process.
Mhm. Well, you
And
said two
so,
important things. Like one, you can't really lead anyone unless you're leading yourself and really understanding yourself in order to guide other people. And that is fundamental to the work that we do with people. And the
yeah,
other important piece that you mentioned is by giving yourself that time and space and then going through this process of you figuring out, well, okay, what's the method here of how I'm actually helping people? Because that inner child piece, I going through that process helps you really tune in to yourself. And so it gives
right,
you a whole new set of skills of learning how to tune into other parts of yourself or other aspects in the world.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, we should start with the
Uh-huh.
most basic question, which is, can you touch on what is inner child work?
Yeah. So I love this question because my experience of what I hear other people think inner child work is not that it's not that. It's that I have taken it to a whole deeper level. So it goes beyond just looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you, and being kind to yourself and writing forgiveness letters to your parents and all that. And to me, inner child work is, well, first of all, I invite everyone to think of their inner child as the part of you that is your emotions. So any emotion you're experiencing, whether it's like joyful, excited, horny, happy, or it's scared, anxious, whatever, frustrated, whatever it is, this is your younger self that is having this experience, so that you start to relate to your emotions as something that there is for you to tend to, just like a child needs tending to. So, and then inner child work to me is about recognizing that everything that how you operate today is not who you are. It's what you learned. And you learned it by the time you were 7 years old, mostly from mom and dad, whether they were present or not in your life. And that if you learned it, you can unlearn it. And that the power of inner child work, or inner child reparenting, as I feel like I prefer referring to it, is that you get to take control back of that script that you inherited. Like, imagine yourself as a movie. Like, there is the Caitlin's movie, and you inherited the script. And all that's happening right now is you're playing out over and over again the roles that you learned to play, and casting people in your movie and repeating scenes. And we learn from mom and dad by what we see, what we hear, what we feel energetically. And when we either copy, rebel, or create a way to survive. And so the exploration of inner child work is looking at the role that mom and dad played, which I can get into, and what they modeled for us in the most important areas of our development, which is our self-esteem, our needs and wants, giving it to ourselves, and also asking for what we need and want, limits and boundaries with ourselves and others, our ability to connect to ourselves and then also show up authentically and vulnerably connecting with others, and then responsibility, really owning our life and our choices. And if you think about those as subjects and mom and dad as the teachers, mom being the teacher for everything related to yourself, and dad, because mom's your role model for yourself. She represents everything about self, because at one point you were connected to her, so you didn't see her as separate. When you were born, the second you were born, you felt this safety with mom, this connection to mom, like, I am mom, mom is me. So you look at her for what's possible with yourself, for yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself, what you believe in yourself. And you either copy or you rebel, right? Or survive. And then dad is your role model for everything other related, everything that is not the self, relationships to others, the world, love. And so if you look at mom is my teacher for everything related to self, and here are the subjects: self-esteem, giving myself what I need and want, limits and boundaries with myself, connecting to myself. And you look at dad as everything related to the world. And these are the subjects they were supposed to teach us. And they did. They modeled it to us. And we took it on as this is how it is. And so the opportunity now of doing the work is being proactive with exploring every area of your script and what you learned in that area. When people get into self-development work, what leads them to it is some trigger. When a client comes to a call, to a session, they're coming with some challenge, some issue. And we want to support them in that. But if all you do is support them in that, you're being reactive. You're not being proactive with healing. It's like tending to the biggest weed in the garden, but then like not recognizing that there's a lot that's still dormant. And so the opportunity of inner child work is, well, let me look at the full script, not just the one character that I want to stop acting like, ooh, I'm a people pleaser. How do I stop being that? Or how do I stop being so, self-sabotage? but really looking at everything else as well, so that you're done living a life of survival and surviving and playing out what you don't want to play, and that you actually can create the life that you want in all areas. Because I could tell you from being in my 40s, life doesn't stop handing you challenges and opportunities for growth. And at every level, there's a devil, so to speak. So there's things that, right now could be dormant for you. You may only be present to maybe being codependent and being a people pleaser and not recognize the things that are only going to arise when you move in with your partner, or when you get married, or when you have a child, or when you have, financial struggles. And so why wait for those things to happen and then have to react to them with hopefully a great set of tools? So first and foremost, let's tend to the garden. Let's really clear out and feel empowered and equipped that in the future, whatever life hands me, I know that I can, I'm ready for it. I have the awareness, and I have the emotional capacity to be with what arises, because every situation brings up emotions.
I think the biggest, and maybe this isn't the right word, but the biggest mistake, or when people get in their own way, at least what I see, is when they get focused on, say, a behavior or a way that they're living, and they get focused on, I just don't want to be this way, or I want to be this way. And they feel like this tunnel vision. I mean, I know I have myself. So it's, you get hyper focused almost on this way of being, instead of looking at all the other parts of the garden. And parts work, right? That's what you're talking about, is like, we have all these different aspects to ourselves. And a lot of times I break it down to people, like, you're looking at like this one way that you want to be, like, what if you're not meant to be that way, right? Or let's look at it from a different perspective, because it blocks them from growing into who they could be, right? Or dropping those defenses that have led them to living in survival for most of their life. And the other part that you said that was really important, that I wanted to actually explore a little bit, is when people are doing this work, a lot of times what I see can happen is this anger, resentment towards their parents. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. A lot of times people don't humanize their parents because of whatever trauma may have occurred or continues to occur in their life, or whatever that relationship may look like now. So can you speak to that, when people experience that, like, anger and resentment towards one of their parents or both?
Yeah. I love this. First off, you get to validate that experience. Yeah. It validating that little boy or little girl's experience of the anger that was there, like fully giving permission to feel like, yeah, I'm angry. And only once you're able to move through enough of that can you then bring in, I have a practice of visualization that I take my clients through, of really connecting to little mom or little dad, right? Like you said, humanizing them. We go from like seeing them as the adult, the parent that was supposed to protect us and do this for us and love us and all that. And we forget that at one point that parent was 4 years old, 5 years old themselves. And what did they go through that had them learn to be this way? So taking them through this, I call it a play date. Like, are you open to having a play date? Little Caitlin and little mom. Yeah. Where are you guys? What are you doing? Oh, we're in the backyard. Yeah, we're playing with the sprinklers. Fun. Great. and then inviting them like, go ask little mom, where did she learn that there's a right way and a wrong way, or whatever it is, the thing that they were upset about. Where did you learn to, hit your child? Whatever it is. And trusting that what comes through as the answer. We could have this as like a logical conversation. Like a lot of times it's like, oh, well, I know my mom, blah, blah, blah. But it's different when you're doing it in this visualization with this little boy and little girl and little mom, and how it creates that visual, that emotional connection to humanize them, like you said, to really see and feel what it was like for them. And I mean, it works every time that it brings compassion, that energy of compassion into the space, where they no longer feel like they need to resent or blame. Now, there could be other factors too, though. It could be that you really need to set, as an adult now, boundaries with mom or dad. That it's not healthy, it's toxic. You can't have them in your life in this way. And you get to now be responsible for taking care of that little one. It's your job. How does it feel to be around mom or around dad in this way? What do you need to feel safe? It's your job to make that little one feel safe. So
I've
sometimes that is
never
the
heard
case.
it that way, going on a play date with each other. That's so interesting. I really like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, thanks for touching on that. And it's interesting because every time I talk to someone about this work, whether they're in it or they've done it themselves, the way that their coach or their therapist walked them through that process, it's very unique. And everyone has like their own, like you were talking about in the beginning, you have your own way of walking people through this. And so I love hearing how many different pathways there are out there for people to arrive. Not that you ever fully arrive in a place, but how I like to explain it, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is you learn how to essentially become more in tune and rhythm with yourself. Right.
Exactly.
You said this earlier, like life is not like peaches and rainbows all the time, but you learn how to have that dialogue with yourself that doesn't feel so
Yes.
hard or shameful anymore. And you learn to be more in rhythm with yourself and check in with yourself. And it just flows a lot easier, where prior it may have just felt like a lot of resistance or hard or shameful, or you were feeling guilty every night and you were just left feeling awful all the time.
Yeah. And those feelings still arise. I was
Absolutely.
frustrated a lot earlier this week. And another, like, if I could give you guys another practice to do is anytime you do feel, especially when you feel like there's like this the lingering thing that just won't pass in 2 seconds, imagining yourself in whatever is your safe space, whether it's your bedroom, outside in nature, whatever that is, and that your inner child, your little boy or little girl, is walking towards you or walking into the room, and it's the part of you that is saying, I feel dot dot dot. I feel frustrated. I feel scared. I feel depressed. I feel hopeless. Whatever it is. And like you said, starting to form that healthy dialogue of what does that little one need in that moment. And a lot of times when clients start doing this at first, it's super hard for them because whatever way mom nurtured them is going to be the first thing that shows up when they are now needing to be quote unquote mothering that child. And so if mom was always fixing, anytime you felt bad, it was like, oh, well, let's go play, let's go have ice cream, come watch TV, like not acknowledging how you feel, then you'll learn to always fix your feelings. Like, well, I just need to fix this. I just need to make this go away so that I could feel better.
Mm-hmm.
um, or if mom just dissociated, just wasn't there, it's going to be very foreign to you to stay in it, to be there. Or if mom was very hard and judgmental on herself or on you, same thing. You're going to learn to the first thing that's going to show up is that, because that's what's in the script. That's what you learned. And so the thing with inner child work is it's, yes, we need to learn to have that time and relating and patience. And we need to see everything that we learned that shows up in the way of it and be able to identify that and ask yourself, what did I need? If I knew I was safe, what did I need from mom in that moment? Instead of her telling me, you didn't do it right. Can't get you to do anything, for example, right? Where you end up also being harsh on yourself. What did you need in that moment? Well, I needed mom to say to me, it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's all right. Let's try it again. Or let me show you. Or I love you. It's totally okay. You're safe. So that we then learn how to reparent ourselves, how to
Mm-hmm.
give that to ourselves. Because the automatic program is going to show up. And we have to, yeah, we get to become the editor, edit that script and learn a new way of being with ourselves. So that's part of it as well.
Yeah, you're learning to change the pathway. And I mean, you said, it took 8 to 10 years, and it can take a long time to change that pathway or create a new pathway in your nervous system to respond to situations differently, and to find that synchronicity with yourself. Um, what I'm curious about is how or why is inner child healing so important, especially for people in leadership positions? How can it enhance their leadership skills by walking through this process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the better you get, again, your inner child is your emotions. So, which means it's your energy, it's your nervous system too. So, as a leader, for you to know how to tend to yourself, you can be more grounded, present, compassionate, energetically available for the people around you, for your team. And also, uh, when leaders do this work, they stop projecting. They're not coming from their ego, they're coming more from their heart. So, your ego is your amigo. Your ego is the ultimate protector. I know everybody wants to get rid of their ego. No, no, no. We're not supposed to get rid of our ego. Our ego is there as the ultimate protector of that inner child when that inner child does not know how to tend. When you don't tend to the inner child, you can think of this as like the bodyguard. The ego is the bodyguard. The ego is going to step in and it's going to say, okay, well, we don't know how to feel this. So we're just going to look externally to feel better. We're going to look where we're better than everyone. We're going to do everything to look externally, right? To feel better. That's the job of the ego. And a lot of people in leadership roles are still driven by their ego. They're still doing something to avoid having to be and feel a particular way. That is the job of the ego. The challenge is that it is it doesn't create space for the heart. It's all about how do I be the best? How do I feel the best? Which means it's you against the world in
Mm-hmm.
some way. Your access to your heart is your inner child. Your access to your creativity is your inner child. And think about this. If you're a parent and you have a child, well, obviously, if you're a parent, you have a child. But when your child was little and they were upset, if you didn't tend to their emotion, their experience, validate it, have them feel safe, they probably got stuck with it longer or ended up having a bigger tantrum. But if you actually gave them the safety and the space and the presence that they need and validated their experience, they move through that emotion in about 90 seconds. They've done Harvard studies on this, that you can move through a wave of emotion in 90 seconds if you don't resist it, judge it, add anything to it. And so you'll see this with a child. They'll move through their experience. And then what are they going to do next? They're going to go off and play. They're going to create. They're going to be back in the full wonder of life. And so we have that same ability to access the fullest potential, the highest potential of creativity, of joy, of giving. And it comes from when we truly know how to move through these emotions, move through these energies. I think about it like these emotions are like waves in the ocean, and you're out at sea and you want to come back home. And the only way is to learn to ride the waves. Some waves are small and some are really big. And so the better you get at learning how to ride the waves of whatever emotions come up without resisting it, the quicker you can come back home to yourself. And so to get out of my metaphoric world here
I
and
love
get more, I
it.
know I'm a metaphor whore, believe me.
Ah,
But to
yeah.
really give you guys more of an example, there's certain waves, certain emotions, certain feelings that we don't like to feel. We don't want to feel. And it's not the same for everyone. For some people, the emotion they can't be with is love and joy and peace. They feel peace. They're like, uh-oh, something like they're waiting for the shoe to drop. So it's not about good or bad. It's about what's familiar to your nervous system.
I had a client mention that recently. We were talking about rest and what that means to her. And we talk a lot about the nervous system. And she was like, well, it's like my nervous system perceives rest as a threat. And so I go into fight, flight, freeze because I don't like know what to do with myself.
Exactly. Or like if you grew up in a household of chaos, you will literally look to create chaos because that feels like home to you. That feels safe to you. So part of the practice also in when I work with my clients is learning to accept and be with what is, with nothing to change, nothing to fix. So there's 5 stages to healing something. Stage 1 is awareness, and awareness is like, okay, I'm aware of the thing that I want to change, but there's so much more to explore and delve into in awareness, from the protectors that show up, the behaviors that show up, the patterns that show up, the limiting beliefs that show up. Who did I learn this from? What's really underneath this need to be this way? Who modeled this to me? So that's a lot that we get to open up our awareness to. And then stage 2 is acceptance. And believe it or not, this is the hardest stage for people to get past, because we want to fix it. We want it to go away. We want to come back to what we think is safety. And so there's so much work in this stage around cultivating, learning how to feel safe, finding the safe places within our system, and then connecting to these experiences like whatever the belief is. like you were saying with your one client. when when I rest, I'm scared. And it's like, what comes up for you? Oh, fight, flight, freeze, right? Where in your system? Where do you feel that in your body? And then bringing all the attention and presence to that energy.
Mhm. I
And
find a
getting,
lot of clients have a hard time with that part. Like anytime I try to go there, there's a deflection that comes up, or it seems like they're not understanding it, but I think it's just that sometimes we as humans don't slow down enough to pay attention, and we're so guarded that that's just the automated response.
yeah. And yes, it is. So I call that one of the protectors. Like, they'll say like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. What are you feeling? I don't know. My clients know anytime they say I don't, and they laugh. The clients that have been around longer in the group calls, when they start to laugh when someone says I don't know, because they know what I say next is, and if you did know, like you just don't get
I
to get
like
away with
that.
that. But there's a lot of protectors. So as a facilitator, there's so much that I train my facilitators in recognizing the patterns and protectors that arise and knowing how to support someone with that pattern. Because someone who goes into control needs a different type of facilitation than someone who goes into checking out, dissociating what they need. And these two stages, awareness and acceptance, take are the ones that you're going to spend the most time in. Think about it like, you come to a garden and you're wanting to get to the root of a weed, and there's so much digging in the dirt first that has to be done to get to that. And so it's the same thing as a facilitator or as a client. You don't want to rush through stage 1 and stage 2. Sometimes it's weeks that you're working with a client, and you have to go as fast as their slowest part. Be so attuned with their nervous system and what they can handle. And as much as you, as the facilitator, want to give them a win, that by the end of the session, they feel better. Got to let go of that, because you're going to then go into fixing it, which means that it's temporary, and you're forming a codependent relationship. And so being okay as a practitioner to let them know, like, well, this is as far as we got, and that they need to go and resource themselves whatever way so that they can feel stable till the next session. And as a client, you need to get that, like, acceptance is moving through acceptance is being able to be with what is, with nothing to change, nothing to fix. Like, there actually isn't anything wrong.
That was one of the biggest things or lessons I've learned over the years. The first one was how to protect myself from other people's experiences. And then the second thing was I used to carry a lot of responsibility because I assumed or thought that they had an expectation of me to fix their problems. And if I didn't, then I wasn't like a good therapist, or I wasn't worthy of being
Exactly.
in the position I was in. And for a long time, it's created a lot of anxiety for me, which then interfered with me being able to actually work with them effectively. And they may not have noticed it, but I noticed it in myself. And I just arrived at this place where I was like, what that is a big weight to carry, to try to think I can just fix everyone's problems.
Yeah.
And I realized I'm here to guide and lead them, not fix it. And that changed things. And whether they had that expectation or not,
Yeah.
that's on them, is where I had to separate it, right? That's not a responsibility that I need to carry.
Yeah, and there's a way where we get to um educate our clients and give them context so that they understand what is actually needed. Because ultimately, we want to get you to healing, but this is what's needed at the stage. This is it. So until you feel this in your system, until you feel like you can be with this, we're going to keep coming back to this every time. And yeah, frustration arises. I had a client on a call this week. She's like, I'm so frustrated. I'm like, yeah, mm-hmm. Be with that. Now be with that. Can you accept that? So it's not just about accepting the thing that happened that we need to forgive our parents for, or the thing that happened to us, or the fear that we've been carrying for a month now that we're coming to the session with. It's about also at every single moment what is showing up. It's learning to accept the energy. I'll go back to my metaphor here. You're in the ocean. It's learning to accept the next wave that's coming. And because if you don't, what happens? It plummets on you. And then you're set back again. So,
I I remember going through that process, and I have said a few times, I just want to go back to the beginning. Like, I don't want to continue to do this work. I feel worse than I did before. And so I had someone leading me, and she
mhm.
did everything that you're saying. Like, let me sit with it, then explored it, got curious about it. She didn't try to like push me either way, she just kept exploring it with me. And I like Googled, part of the process, which also helped me because I was like, okay, this is part of just going through it. And it helped me understand it more. But I found, as we wrap up, I wanted to touch on this piece of it because we kind of did in the beginning, but this process can be so painful. And sometimes it feels like it gets worse before it gets better. And I know I have myself and other people start questioning, is this worth it? I just want to go back to being like an unconscious person. I just want to go back to
Yeah.
like not knowing these things because it feels easier in that moment.
Yeah. So I want to explain to you what's actually happening. Okay.
Yeah.
So we can't like what's happening in the system. And when we say like, this is so painful, I don't know that I could be with this. So we label our emotions, the energy we're feeling a lot, right? We label it. This is painful. This still feels frustrating, anxious, icky, uncomfortable. And if it falls in the bucket of like good emotions, we're like, more of that, please. If it falls in the like, I don't want to feel this anymore, we're like, damn it, how much longer? Like, I should have just go back to being unconscious. Why am I doing this? And we said it earlier. The nervous system, it's not about, we're all programmed the same way. Some of us are programmed that like peace and rest feels quote unquote uncomfortable, painful, right? Can't go there. So this work is about retraining our nervous system. And so the language of the nervous system is sensations. So if you can get deeper, get to the root, which is stage 3 of out of speaking it in labels, painful, because it's like, red flag, don't want to go there anymore. I'm like, hey, where do I feel this in my body? Does it have a size, a temperature, a color, a texture? Is it moving? Is it still? As many ways as you can label it, because that's neutral. That is what it is. You're speaking the language of the nervous system. And then the nervous system understands you and can start to process and digest this energy. And so, however much time it takes for you to get to that level and then start to sit with it. Yeah, oh, well, how much longer do I have to sit with this? until it no longer feels unfamiliar. You are actually training your nervous system right now in this act to get familiar with this energy. And the piece that needs to be brought into that is love and acceptance. Can you observe it with love and acceptance? Can you allow this? Can you bring that safety of love, free of judgment, acceptance, compassion, curiosity to this so that we're not blocking the nervous system from fully processing it?
Mm.
Once it does, it's like you start, it's about, this isn't, healing is about building your nervous system's capacity to handle more energy. It's not about how do I heal this so that I never have to feel this again. No, no, no. It's how do I feel this so much that I can be with this energy when it arises in the future.
Mm.
It's that I have more resiliency, more capacity for the full spectrum of being human. Because I forgot. I only went into it's safe to feel these ways. And I forgot how to be full human is the full spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Wow. There is so much to digest in this episode today. Thank you so much for everything that you contributed today. You broke it down in a way that my listeners have not heard before, at least on this show, maybe somewhere else. But I really appreciate your contribution. And I loved your analogies. I think that it really helps our brains to put things into perspective when you're dealing with inner child work. It's very abstract, right? It's not concrete. And so analogies kind of help that process. Now, if my listeners want to get in touch with you and they want to start doing this work, how can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on Instagram and I message every new follower because I want to get to know you and what you're up to while you're following me. So you can
Which I
follow me
love.
there, DM me. Yeah, you can follow me there, DM me there. And you go to my website, trainingcampforthesoul.com. Yes, I do cater more now to coaches and healing professionals because I really want to train the trainers so we can make a bigger impact. But my virtual program is available to any human that wants to take it. So
Awesome. Thank you. And by the way, I did love your personalized video that you sent to me when we connected. That was just very thoughtful and personalized, and it's not something that you see a lot on social media. So thank you for that.
yeah, thank
Yeah,
you. Just looking to have people feel, feel at home in the world of Instagram, feel safe, feel like you actually followed me. You just walked into my home. How am I not going to greet you?
I love
So,
that. Thank you. We
yeah,
need more of you like that
yeah,
in the social media world.
yeah. Thanks, everyone.